Good morning, folks. All right, so this is day 3 of year 13 of my private practice, and today's topic is a little bit emotional, okay? And I might run a little bit over 10 minutes. I'm going to try to keep it short. This one, I admit I have a little bit of speech that I wrote last night, so I might look down at it too. But the topic is putting the wrong in wrongful death lawyers, okay? In 2012, I got the call from Ron Davis, Jordan Davis's father. Jordan was killed November 23rd, 2012, in an argument that stemmed out of Michael Dunn taking exception to Jordan Davis's loud music. There were racial components. Michael Dunn argued stand your ground, even though he fled the scene like a coward and went back to his hotel and tried to get away from it. At the time, I had only done wrongful death from the perspective of the defense. And in those cases, as gross as it sounds, the goal is to minimize the settlement number. You know, insurance companies are authorized to settle for X. And one would think if that's what's authorized, that's what's approved, that's what should be offered. But you wind up going to a mediation and they offer half X or quarter X. Meanwhile, plaintiff's attorneys have to compensate and seek 10X and 5X. And then it whittles down in a flea market style negotiation to some component of X. As defense lawyers, we want to make it less than X. Now my role as a plaintiff's lawyer, we want them to, call their supervisor and make it more than X, or go to trial and hope a jury gives, 2X, 3X. But that's essentially how the jury system works with personal injury and wrongful death cases. So going back to that day in 2012, they called me, and I sat on Ron's couch and cried as much as I've ever cried, including at my, after the loss of my own mother, which had actually happened exactly nearly November 5th, 2011. This was November 23rd, 2012. And Lucy, now Congresswoman Lucy McBath, sat there and debated whether she wanted a lawyer from Georgia because she resided in Atlanta, near Atlanta. And in the documentary Armor of Light, openly discusses why she chose me and why I was appropriate for their case. I'll play that here.
I looked at him and I thought, wow, he seems awfully young, and I wasn't sure how many cases he tried and how experienced he was. But he seemed to have a heart.
It still breaks my heart, and it was, we're 10 years past that, and it's still, heartbreaking. But I went everywhere with him. I went to I had Ron Davis's grandson on my shoulders for a Martin Luther King march, and went to a symposium where I was, often the only white person in the different caucuses and rooms, learning about systemic racism and the portrayal of the black male as dangerous, in media and in movies, and how the amygdala works, and that if Michael Dunn walked across the street in front of us late at night, we might not, as a society, particularly as a society where people of white color tend to have more power than in prestige than a lot in African American culture. But if Jordan Davis as a young 17-year-old black male crossed the street, some without evil thought would fear him simply because of other portrayals in the color of his skin, no matter how innocent and youthful he truly was. So, we addressed all those issues, and I came back and spent the next 10 years taking on wrongful death cases and a vast number of shooting cases. And like I said, the purpose of this blog is talking about lawyers who put the wrong in wrongful death. And I'd come to do HLN and CNN and met a lawyer named Chris Chestnut. And Chris, very charismatic, very A-type personality, looked the part, came from, a fairly prominent family in Gainesville, Florida. But every time we got a wrongful death case in Jacksonville, not every time, but quite often, we would hear how Chris or one of his agents went to the funeral and brought an iPad and tried to sign up the family. And of course, that's hearsay, right? We don't know, but then we got wind of a Florida bar investigation of Chris Chestnut, and, I provided families to speak to the bar investigator. And what ultimately happened, and you can read this on Chris Chestnut's Florida bar page, is the Florida bar did an investigation and completely disbarred Chris Chestnut. He can no longer practice law in Florida, and that was the only license he had. So there was another name that kept popping up in Chris Chestnut's investigation, and that was Alfonso McClendon. So Alfonso is not a lawyer. He has worked for prominent lawyers throughout his career. And in one bar report, Florida bar report, which again is public information, it reads, on October 4, 2019, Tamika Taylor was murdered in her home in Florida. The murder received extensive media attention. During Tamika's wake on October 9, 2009, her mother was approached by a man named Alfonso McClendon II. Mr. McClendon introduced himself as an employee of Chris Chestnut, asked her if she was represented by an attorney, told her that the firm would represent her in a wrongful death action, and several days later showed back up at her door and got her to sign the contract. You cannot do that, folks. If there's an attorney that you don't know showing up at your front door asking for your case, it might seem nice or like God sent them, but quite the opposite is true. They cannot do that, not in any state. There are some exceptions for pro bono work, but these lawyers are not trying to do this pro bono. And even if they're offering to do it pro bono, they're probably gaining media attention, which really isn't pro bono at all, is it? So the Florida bar had no discretion to go after Alfonso McClendon, but he's named in these reports. Then Alfonso McClendon, after Chris Chestnut's in trouble, moves on to Witherspoon Law Group. And guess what happens? In 2021, the Attorney General in the state of Tennessee investigates a school bus crash out of Chattanooga. And they found that Witherspoon and its agent, McClendon, were involved in solicitation of those families. And so there was a jury trial. And on November 12, 2021, the jury found in favor of the state. Again, the state attorney general brought this. And against the Witherspoon Law Group, owner Nuru Witherspoon and law firm representatives Glenn Smith and Alfonso McClendon. Both Smith and McClendon, who were not licensed attorneys, solicited parents whose children died in the accidents. Mr. McClendon had also falsely held himself out to be a lawyer. And we talk about the state attorney general's statement we posted in the comments or in the bio. So Mr. McClendon has now moved on and is working for a local lawyer, Marwan Porter. And we have a case, like on his website, Marwan McClendon appears as the Chief Business Development Officer. Business development, right? Same type thing. So we have a case where we're filing a motion because the same thing is being alleged by our client, that Alfonso McClendon is door knocking to obtain cases that he hears about on the news or through families or through church contacts. You cannot do that. And I am determined to stop it. It's a pariah in this city. There's another case that we'll talk about in a later video where a very prominent lawyer got a call from a church official and ran to the city to do a press conference. They got the names wrong. They didn't even name the client right in the press conference, substituted families and, represent everybody and have conflicts of interest and everything else going on. And look, one client, one family needs one lawyer because you've got a pie to split up if there's multiple people involved in an accident, school bus crash, right? You got multiple families who died. Certainly there are times that you could represent more families, but if you have a pie, right? I'm going to use this light, and there's a circle, right? And each family has to be carved out a piece of that pie because there's never enough money to replace, loss of that nature. Nor is money justice, right? But the more lawyers you have fighting, the more lawyers you have working on laws to help prevent this, the more lawyers you have in these cases that are competent, that are here for the right reasons, the more there's justice by a larger definition. But if you have a select group of lawyers knocking on doors and short settling cases so they don't get caught, it is absolutely injustice. And I am challenging lawyers in this state and judges in this state to stand up because I'm tired of it. So that's my blog for today. A little passionate about it because I'm tired of it. And I'm tired of us ignoring it. I'm tired of us pretending that this is an altruistic behavior because they're ultimately, forcing settlements. Meanwhile, they don't go to court. They're knocking on doors. And victims are just trying to get through day by day. So, folks, if a lawyer's chasing after you, find another lawyer. They're out there. They care. Choose your lawyers. Don't let them choose you.